Okay, everyone. I think we'll make a start now. Thank you, everyone, for joining us who've come along. This is our very first Melbourne Flutter online event. So hopefully we'll be doing more of these in the near future, but this is our very first inaugural one. And today we're looking at open source with Flutter. So on the agenda for today's event, we'll be having Nima present why and how to contribute to the Flutter repo via a pull request. So really looking forward to hearing Nima talk about this. Nima, for those of you who are in Melbourne, might have known that Nima was actually scheduled to present during our last meetup before it unfortunately got cancelled under the present circumstances. So I'm really happy to be able to have Nima present this to us today. And then following that, we're all going to have like a Q&A panel with Nima, Brett Morgan from the Google Flutter Developer Relations team, Suesi, co-organizer with myself on the Flutter Melbourne meetup, and myself, who I'm also another organizer of the Flutter Melbourne meetup and a Flutter GDE. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Nima, and he'll be giving us his presentation on how to contribute to the Flutter repo. So welcome, Nima, and take it away.
Sure, thanks, Max. Okay, guys, let me share my screen. I hope my screen is coming up soon. Can you see my screen, Max?
No, sorry, we can't see it quite yet. It might have been I was still sharing mine when you tried it, so maybe just give it another go, because I was a little bit slow in unsharing mine.
Okay, let me do that again.
Oh, here we are. Yep, I can see it now. Here you go.
Okay, oops. Cool. Thanks.
So there you go.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much for your contributing to participating into this meeting. I'm going to talk about why and how contribute to the Flutter repo via pull request today. I'm Nima Azimi, mobile team lead at AssetOwl. During the past 18 years, I had different roles in software industry, such as J2E developer, Oracle ADF developer, and native iOS engineer. But now, proudly, I'm a Flutter developer. Okay, first of all, let's talk about why we do a pull request at all. The first benefit of that is to, by doing the pull request, we know the technology at a much deeper level. By seeing the source code of the other users, specifically well-known users in their open source community, we can see how they manage their code, what is their style, how they fix the current problems, and so on. So we can know and familiar more with the technology with this approach. The second benefit of that is payback to the community. As you know, we are using the open source community in our daily basis. But if we don't pay back to the community, the open source community won't grow as much as it should be. So we need to pay back to the community by doing something in the open source environment, such as creating a pull request. The next benefit of that is to build a great portfolio and reputation for ourselves. Whenever you are going to a meeting or you are going to an interview for a job, you can show your portfolio of the open source contribution to the interviewer and show them your code, how you wrote your test, unit test, integration test, and so on. And actually, it shows that you are keen enough to contribute to the open source community and you are confident enough to share your code to the internet. The second part of that is the next part of that is reducing the development cost. For example, if you are going to use a plugin, Flutter plugin in your project, you just need to integrate that into your project and use that. But if you are going to add a feature to you need some feature to that plugin, you don't need to write that from scratch. You can just add that specific feature as a pull request to the current plugin and just use that as a new enrichment plugin in your code. The next part of that is make software more usable. For example, in our case, camera plugin of the Flutter is a good plugin that lets us customize that as much as we like. But definitely it has lack in some kind of features such as tap to focus, brightness, camera flash, or something like that. If we don't add those kind of features to the current plugin, or in this case, camera plugin, that part of the plugin wouldn't be usable for everyone. We see some companies that or developers that don't use camera plugin specifically because in their eyes it is not ready for use in production. But when we add new features to those as a pull request to those plugins, it would be more usable as a part of the software. The case study that we are going to talk about is Flutter Camera plugin. As you know, Flutter Camera plugin is a bare bone of the camera usage in the Flutter system, and in a way that we can customize that as much as we like. If we use, if we use the normal camera plugin, which is the native camera usage, we can't customize that at all. But when we use Flutter Camera plugin, we can customize that and use that as the way that we like to. But we need more features into that. For example, in our case, as you see, we have very customized viewport of the camera here. It is for one of our important projects in AssetOwl. It has a comment on top of that. It has some kind of interactive checkbox in the bottom. We have some kind of specific UI in the bottom, such as add from gallery, rotate orientation, turn on and off the flash, and also voice recording. So definitely we couldn't use the native camera plugin. We needed to use the Flutter Camera plugin to be able to make that customize as we like. But in this case, Camera plugin does not support brightness control. We needed to be able to turn make the viewport brighter or darker based on the light of the environment. So we added a brightness feature to that to make that, for example, by this slider, make that up and down and make that brighter or darker. And also in this photo, in this image here, we had tap to focus. Current camera plugin does not support tap to focus, which is very important in nowadays of the usage of the camera. By tap to focus, we can select a small region of the viewport and make focus of the camera to that specific part with this custom UI that you can see here. These are the things that we liked to add to the camera plugin, and also make pull requests out of that for to the community. Okay, now let's see what should be done. What should we do for contributing to the as a pull request? What is the contributing steps here? First of all, we need to fork the repository to our repository, because whenever we are going to create a pull request, it should be created from the fork of the main repository. For creating a fork from the repository, we can go to the GitHub. There is a button in the top right corner of the GitHub, which is the fork button. When we tap on the fork button, it creates the fork repository here for us in our repository. For example, here, asset view is our own repository, and Flutter/plugins is our forked plugin repository that has been created for us here. The next step is create a feature branch. Every time that we are going to create a pull request, we need to create a feature branch out of the master branch. Because at the end of the day, when we add our codes or something, we will create a PR from our feature branch to the master branch of the main repository. For creating a feature branch, it's easy in the GitHub, and also we can do that by command line. If we are going to do that from the GitHub, we tap on the branch here, we add the name of the branch, and we tap on the create branch button here. And it creates that branch. For example, in this case, the name of the branch is set exposure compensation, which is related to that brightness for the camera. Or we can do that from the command line by creating git branch, name of the feature branch, and then check out that. The next step is to modify or add your changes, which is obvious. The reason of the pull request is to add changes to the main branch, to the main repository at the end of the day. After doing that, you need to commit regularly, but not too much, because if you commit too much, it would be difficult for a reviewer at the end of the day to check your codes and review your code. But you need to have enough commit to show that what you have done so far. You need to add required unit test and integration test. As you know, any good piece of software has its own unit test and integration test. There is no exception here as well. You need to create those for your changes that you've done into the repository and add unit test and integration test for that. You need to double check your code with the style guide of the Flutter and Dart. There are two style guides on the internet, one for Dart and one for Flutter. And it is very useful. I encourage you to definitely check those two documents because it shows you that what type of code is considered as a good code or bad code. So you can learn a lot from that, and it's very good to be able to adhere to those in your daily basis of the code development as well. One important thing here is that to adhere to the current approach and style of the code that you are going to change. For example, when you are going to add a piece of code to your as a pull request to the main code, you might see some part of the code that is not as good as you expected. But if it is possible, just adhere to that style of coding and add your code to the same style and structure that has been written so far, because it makes the reviewer works much easier. There is only one exception here. If your pull request, the reason of your pull request is exactly to make this change, this structural change or approach change of the main repository, in that case, it is fine to change the approach of the code or a style of the code. Okay, the next step is running tests. Currently, each plugin, I'm talking specifically now about Flutter plugin repository. It has its own integration test and unit test. For integration test, there are some commands that you need to run after you change your code and you are ready to create your pull request. You need to run these integration tests and other tests to make sure that your changes have not corrupted something or broken something. The next step is to add a local Android device to your computer, and then write this command, which is run its integration test on your local Android devices. I'm not telling about detail about these commands because all of them are available online in the documentation of the contribution guide. So you can easily copy and paste that, so I don't bother you with the details of this command in this presentation. The next step is running Dart unit tests. Actually, there are two unit tests here, Dart unit test and Java unit tests, which you can run with these commands, again, just to make sure that your changes have not broken something. And the next important thing is to be in sync with upstream. To be in sync with upstream, you need to add remote upstream to the Flutter plugin Git with this command, and also fetch from master repository, and then merge changes to your fork repository, and finally rebase the master branch to your branch. So by doing that, the reason of being sync with upstream is that you are always be up to date with the recent change of the code in the master branch of the main repository. By always being sync with that, you make sure that you won't face with a lot of conflicts later on with between your code and the master code or something like that. So it is very important step to keep in mind to do always when you are going to create a pull request. The next step is verify your changes specifically. The first part is to install a tools named Flutter Plugin Tools, which has been created specifically for plugin repository. By creating this Flutter Plugin Tools, it helps you to verify your code formatting, for example. This code formatting is in relation and in sync with the Flutter guideline and Dart guideline, style guideline. So when you run that, it checks your codes to make sure that the formatting of your codes is as expected. And if it is not, it will change your code and format that correctly. So you don't need to worry about that. After you run this part of the command, you can check your code to see if something has changed or not. If it has changed, you just need to commit that as one part of your commit to the pull request. Then it checks analysis. It is similar to Dart analysis that we have in Android Studio. If you check that, you can see that sometimes it has some warning or errors or something like that. By running this check analysis, you will make sure that there is no any error or warning. And if there is error or warning, you should fix that before creating your pull request. Otherwise, reviewer can reject that or don't even start reviewing when they see that there are some analysis error or issue in your code. And finally, run test specifically for your plugin. This test is about running the test that you have written in your code, not about the integration between this plugin and other plugins. So this is running your test and make sure that your test is working correctly. Now it's time to create a pull request. How we can create a pull request? First of all, you need to go to the GitHub in your own repository. Here we have AssetOwl plugins, which is forked from Flutter plugins. You will go to the GitHub. You tap on the you select your Fisher branch here, and you tap on the new pull request in this site. By doing that, a new pull request will be created. But actually, it is the first step of creating a pull request. Now the fun part starts. When you create a pull request, you are ready to submit your pull request. But submission to the pull request has its own rule and regulation in my mind. First of all, you need to write an informative and intuitive description to that and explain that what your changes do in the code, and what is the purpose of your pull request, why you wrote this pull request. Then you need to find any related issues that might fixed by merging this pull request. You will mention those related issues, and if your pull request fix some issues that are already in the repository, it makes your pull request a higher priority for reviewer to check them and merge them probably to the main branch, because it can fix some other issues as well. Next, the title of the PR is important to be started with bracket name of the plugin. For example, if we are going to change and create a pull request for camera plugin, we need to start the name of the pull request with bracket camera, and then the title of the pull request. Then you need to make sure that you update the version of the pub spec YAML. It should be based on the manifest of the versioning, which has its own documentation, but it should show that this change will increase the version to, for example, .2 or something like that. Also, you need to change and add description in changelog.md file. By doing that, when you go to, for example, pub.dev website and check the changelog tab, you will see what has been changed between these versions, and it can help developers to make sure that they need to update their plugin to that version to receive this benefit of the change. Also, you need to mention that your PR caused any breaking change or not, because it is important for reviewers to just make sure that the change has any breaking change or not. If there is any breaking change and it is inevitable, they need to pay more attention to the detail of the plugin or your PR to make sure that the breaking change is really required, and how they need to plan for that. The next step is legal stuff, which is signing CLA. What is CLA? CLA is contributor license agreements. In simple translation of that, it is actually shows that you are authorized to write those code in the PR, and you are responsible for that, and you are a legal person or company to do that for this PR. There are two type of agreements here: individual agreement and corporation agreement. Individual agreement is very easy when you are the only developer or not company here that you are going to create a pull request. For this one, you can easily write your email, your name, and your GitHub username, and that's it. You will sign that electronically, and it is enough for Google that authorize you to be the owner of this change that you are going to create a pull request out of that. Corporate agreement is a little bit more complex, because definitely it is a corporate stuff, and the legal stuff is more important here. For example, in our case, our company likes to have the name of the company as a pull request writer. So in that case, we needed to do a corporate agreement. For corporate agreement, you need to add corporation name, authorized contributor group. For this one, you need to create a Google group as a company group, and then invite all contributors of this pull request to that group. By doing that, actually, you authorize those developers that are in your company, and they are authorized to commit and submit the pull request on behalf of your company. Then you need to add someone as a primary point of contact, and also authorized signer, which is basically it could be your CEO of the company. Now the CLA is done. When it's done, you need to do one more thing. In the pull request page, you need to add a comment and write Googlebot, I signed it. When you write this, Googlebot comes in and do a check mark for you that you actually signed the CLA, and it will be shown in your pull request page that you have signed the CLA and it is ready to go. Now we need to see that how it looks when it is ready for review. When your pull request is done, all checklist has been done. What is the look like of that in the pull request? Here, this is an example of the pull request that is ready for submission, which is the pull request that I've done for a camera plugin. For example, here I shows that it fixes these three issues. There are some checklists that you need to check and make them ready. And most of them are the things that I already discussed here. For example, all existing and new tests are passing. I updated relevant documentations. The analysis does not report any problem on my PR, and so on. And also, breaking change here shows that if you have any breaking change or not in your PR. When you do that and you submit your pull request, at the moment, around 24 tests would be run, such as build IPA, APK, check integration test in all plugins, and whatnot. And also, it makes sure that there is no any conflict with the base branch when you submit your pull request. And it is the final form of your pull request if everything works correctly. For example, here it shows that the review requested with a green check mark. One or many pending reviewers are here. All checks have passed, which is 24 successful checks here. And also it shows that this branch has no conflict with the base branch. It is important that finally at the end of the day, you will face with these kind of things before expecting a reviewer to start review your pull request. When you reach to this state, you can wait for review at that part. Thank you everyone for participating in this meetup, and we are ready to hear your questions and possibly answer your questions here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Nima. That was fantastic. So
Thank you.
I'll just, that was a great talk. Yeah, and we'll shortly start our panel discussion and Q&A session. So everyone, please, as I mentioned in the chat window, like if you have any questions, please feel free to post them now, and we'll start the discussion in one moment. I'll also share my screen because we've got also some prizes for tonight, courtesy of Google. So we'll actually have a gift voucher for the best question that people ask, and also for those of you who can fill in our feedback form, which I'll post a link to in the chat shortly. So don't worry about typing it in from the slide. We'll also have a prize draw after tonight for 2 vouchers. So if you do want to leave your name and email when you leave some feedback, you'll be in the prize draw for one of those vouchers too. So at this point, I'll get rid of my screen, and I'll bring in the other panelists that we'll have today. So we'll bring Nima back, and we'll also be bringing in Brett Morgan from Google, and welcome to Suesi. One of my fellow co-organizers.
Hi,
Welcome, everyone. So, we'll start kicking off the panel discussion in a second. So I'm just having a quick look to see, because there is a little bit of a delay between when we get things coming in from the chat. So I'll just have a look if there's any questions that have come in so far. And there's already a couple of questions. Fantastic. So I think this one perhaps is for Nima. So when writing plugins, are all of them written in Dart? So did you want to take that one to start with, Nima? And maybe others can jump in afterwards?
Yeah, definitely it is not important to only write in Dart. It depends on the type of the plugin. Some plugins have its own Android or iOS native side of the code. Definitely you need to change the Android and iOS side of that if it is necessary in the plugin. And you will create a pull request out of that as well. And definitely those part of the code also will be checked here. For example, here in the camera plugin, we had brightness or exposure compensation change. We needed to use native iOS API and native Android API to gain access to that brightness settings. So I did change the Android and iOS as well, and it will be reviewed later on based on the code. So it is not only the Dart, it involves every part of the plugin that needs to be changed.
And can I ask you, Nima, are you still using kind of like the classical version of the plugins, or are you using that new federated model that is beginning to come in?
Actually, at the time that I wrote that camera plugin, it was before the federated plugin stuff. So it was just a classic plugin that I changed.
Excellent, excellent. Susie or Brett, did you guys want to chime in on anything to do with using native code or just plain Dart in your plugins?
Susie?
Actually, I wrote a plugin before, but it's not under Flutter repo. So when I published my repo, it was a mix of Android and iOS, and also that side of the code. And actually what I remember is that apart from the Java language or coding for the Android and iOS, we also have to update the Gradle file for Android, and also the plist. All those settings we also have to update, and sometimes it may cause conflict as well. So especially with the iOS from different environment, the most painful part I remember is 10.3, I think, iOS 10.3.
And I guess the only thing I'd like to point out is that federated plugins is very much something about supporting web and desktop and all those sorts of things. So for people who are just doing Android and iOS, federated plugins are not that interesting to you. But hopefully they will become interesting when you want to take your Android and iOS application and take it everywhere else.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that, Brett. So if someone's writing a new plugin, is it still okay for them to use the kind of the existing pre-federated plugin structure? Would that still be all right for a new plugin, or is it better to move to the federated plugin? Like, for instance, if you are not expecting to use it for the web, if it's say something that's very mobile specific.
Absolutely, you can continue with the current structure. I kind of suggest going down the path of federated plugin, if only to allow separate release cycles for iOS and Android.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's a very good point. Yes, so because you might want to split that up and release do different releases for each one if you need to. Yeah.
Yeah. The primary driver for federated plugins was, once we started looking at plugins and going, we need to support Android, iOS, the web, Linux, Mac OS, Windows. Finding one team that has that breadth of skill is very hard, but finding a group of developers who are interested in, say, the camera plugin, are willing to work together in a federated union is actually a lot easier. So then you'll have one developer who's owning the macOS experience and one that's owning the Linux experience, and they can work together, and they only have to agree on versioning at the top level, and at the SPI, the service provider interface. And it makes it a lot easier instead of having everyone in the one code base.
Makes great sense. Yes, like I've been in that boat myself, where like my background is Android, and I've needed to work alongside an iOS dev who is much more familiar with that side of the code.
Yeah.
Cool. The next question was actually about. It was directed to me about the COVID app that the GDG here, or some people from the GDG here, have been working on. I might take most of that on notice, except to say that it's actually been, because we did it as an open source app and it is available like on GitHub. I have to say it's been quite an interesting experience that I haven't. This is the first time that I've worked on, I guess, a Flutter app with so many people involved. So that in itself, I guess, sometimes presents its own set of challenges. I wonder if I could perhaps like take the opportunity to direct another question towards you, Brett, is that I believe you might, and I know this perhaps from personal experience, that you might be the maintainer on one or two Flutter open source projects. I wonder maybe if I could ask you from the other side of the fence, as a maintainer, what kind of things do you look at, or do you find that you need to sort of worry about as a maintainer versus as a contributor to like an open source repository, like say a Flutter plugin or a package?
Okay. The hilarious thing here is my day job. I write an open source project that no one contributes to. I sometimes get my colleagues to contribute something, but it's just me, really. That's the compilation backend for Dartpad, or Flutterpad, as it's now sometimes referred to. So the projects I am an open source contributor on that actually see pull requests from people outside of my immediate team are things like Flutter Markdown and Flutter Markdown and Flutter Markdown, really. And the primary problem I have there is it's not in my day job. So it's very much, if I'm trying to do something with Flutter Markdown, it's because I'm missing out on sleep. So the primary thing I'm looking for in a pull request is specific intent, good code, test coverage, the fact that it's formatted correctly, the variables make sense, it's written in the simplest way possible. No, I'm a third-year student and I'm showing off all my design patterns. No, please God, no. Make it easy to understand, easy to maintain, because someone wielding an axe, probably me, is going to have to deal with it at 3 in the morning, and that's not a good place to be dealing with all too smart code.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd hardly agree. What do you think, Nima? Like you as a contributor to like the camera plugin, how did you find the process in terms of like the feedback that you got, say, on the code that you were contributing on your PR?
Yeah, actually, there is some things that we need to make sure that it works correctly, as Brett mentioned. For example, I'm very keen to write a long name for methods or variable. It's not important. If it is long, it should be descriptive. We are not using some kind of just A, B, C or something, or even abbreviations. We don't have any abbreviation in our radar when we are using code naming, because I'm doing some kind of code reviews as well in the company, and I know exactly what Brett says about making that easier for reviewers and respect their time. So yeah, one of the things is that. The other thing is the thing that I mentioned in my presentation as well. Don't change the approach or change the structure of the previous code to write your new part of the code. Just adhere to that and just add your code to things, the change that you need to apply, unless it is about the change approach that you are going to write. And about the feedback, actually, I'm still waiting for reviewers to start reviewing that, although it is past everything. Yeah, Brett, we are still waiting for reviewing camera plugin, and hopefully it would be easy enough for review. So we should see how it goes.
Yeah, I have to admit, like, I think I've been on both sides of the fence. Like, I've contributed PR or contributed to existing PRs and need to get feedback, but also like I maintain like an open source, but not Flutter-based, Android-based project. And I have to say, also as a like maintainer, I can sort of see the other side of the fence because like I do it in my spare time, and it is often quite hard to find the time to go through and give people feedback on PRs and review them. So yeah, I think it's a difficult thing for both people who submit PRs and maintainers of projects, and probably no simple answers except like sometimes you do have to sort of prod a little bit. I'm guilty of the prodding, as Brett knows, but also you have to understand. Yeah, also you probably don't prod too much because we're mostly all contributing in our spare time, so it's often hard to make the time in people's busy lives to get to do round to doing the PR reviews and providing feedback.
If I can say one thing with regard to that, Max, you have on occasion poked me and gone, "This is all on fire." It's actually been quite useful because I've then turned around and talked to the team and gone, "Okay, who's actually maintaining this?" And a whole bunch of people looked at each other and went, "Not me," which is kind of how I wound up looking after Flutter Markdown, because I went, someone has to do it. So yeah. I must say, as someone who is on that side of the fence some of the time, I'm also on the other side of the fence a lot of the time, and I find it quite useful to introduce changes slowly and smallly. So smallly, English, how do I even? One of the things I do is when I want to make a change to someone's package, I turn up and make a small change to start the conversation, start the relationship. I frequently do this as a code cleanup, introduce pedantic. Max will have seen me do this on COVID-19, where I'm basically doing the grunt work that a lot of people just don't want to touch. It gets you in a place where a maintainer looks at you and goes, okay, one, you actually care about code sanity, code safety, code smells, yada, 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 and you're willing to do some grunt work, not just sit there and go, it should be done this way, which is really freaking annoying. I go back to the Linux guys as much as they've got their own problems, but code wins. So if you turn up and say, there's a problem here, here's a potential fix, it's much nicer than, oh, there's a problem, bye. Hope that helps. Oops, I've just been attacked by a puppy.
Definitely. I completely agree with all of that, Brett. So yeah, we're very much in agreement.
One more thing I can add to that is that, for example, change, as Brett also said, change granular things, not multiple things in one pull request. For example, we had two changes that we've done for the camera, one for brightness and one for tap to focus. Definitely don't do both of the tap to focus and brightness in one pull request. It makes the reviewers work very harder to review both features in one pull request. Just do that separately and make that easier for review and merge to the base branch.
Yeah, I would second those thoughts as well for 100%. I was just wondering if I could pass the question on to you, Susie. Like, someone's asked the fact about Brett mentioning design patterns and what are the recommended popular patterns for Flutter. Like this is, I guess, in some ways a personal thing. So, like, what are your personal preferences, Susie, in terms of like the patterns that you use in your Flutter apps? Like, do you have a particular favorite for state management or how you structure your app?
Right now, my favorite structure is still clean architecture, but I use it together with the scope model. So my scope model will be divided by the hierarchy of the importance of each of stream. So when I use it together with scope model and with the scope model, it really helped me to really organize my app and get the information on the database easier and faster. So I don't really follow the recommendation out there, because most of people tell me how wonderful block button is. But so far it's too complicated for my app, so I'm still stick with clean architecture with scope model.
No, I'd say that's a great idea. Like I think blocks good, but it has its place. So it's definitely not the single solution. So, and scope model, like, yeah, it doesn't get as much mention as I think it should. Like, I guess it was very much one of the first kind of nice like architecture or like patterns that worked well for people who didn't need the complexity of, or didn't want to use the complexity of the block model. I just have another question here. I think it's for perhaps directly for Nima, about his plugin taking advantage of devices with multiple cameras, like front and rear, in different specifications.
Yeah, definitely. That camera plugin has capable of selecting camera. You can get all available camera from the device. Even with the newest device, you will get ultra-wide camera from Samsung S20 or something, and you can select each one of the camera that you need, rear, front, or ultra-wide, and you can even let users select those kind of camera devices. It is the beauty of using the camera plugin, and this is the reason why it is, as I said, it is very customizable and it is very flexible. Just if it has all the basic features that we needed. Yeah.
That sounds great. So I think that hopefully answers that question. And there's another question I spotted about integrating third-party SDKs for Android and iOS when they don't have an existing Flutter wrapper. Did someone want to have a go at that? Susie, Brett?
I can see that someone has already gave the answer. Since there's no Flutter wrapper, you will have to give the Flutter wrapper yourself. And with that, it's quite similar to writing any type of plugin. All the steps that mentioned by Nima previously can be applied as well. So it's just something extra fun to do.
I can say an example about that if you like. In the project that I'm working, we've done at least 2 times for integrating third-party plugins, third-party SDK into our app. One of them was related to dictaphone and voice-to-text. We integrated Google voice-to-text SDK into the Flutter. By doing that, we needed to write Android side and iOS side of that to receive the data from the audio and then get the text out of that. When we receive the text of the streamed audio, the only thing that we need to do is to use the channeling in the Flutter to transfer those text via the plugin channel to the Flutter section of the code. So you do bare bone of the functionality in the native part and transfer the result to the Flutter section. Also, we've done some kind of integration with third-party camera, 360 panoramic camera SDK, and it just take the photo, send that back to the native iOS or Android app, and then it sends the photo to the Flutter section. It is some kind of interface between third-party library and the Flutter library that you need to write in combination with Dart and native iOS and Android part.
And Nima, I was wondering, how did you find the process of writing those? Like, did you find it fairly straightforward, like compared to just usual app development within Flutter, like dealing with like the platform channels? How did you find integrating those existing SDKs?
Actually, it depends on the nature of the SDK and what it's going to give us back from that. For example, for Google audio to text, voice to text transcription, it was easy because the final result is the text that you need to transfer from the native part to the main part. But for the camera stuff, because you are going to integrate with a different hardware and then send the data of the photo to the final Flutter app, it is a little bit more complex. So it depends on the type of the SDK that you are going to use. But it is very doable. It is very important for us. First of all, for example, integrating with that camera and voice to text was some kind of risk for our project. And it was exactly the first things that we developed before starting a project itself, just in case to make sure that it is doable. And fortunately, till now, Flutter always give us the opportunity to do whatever we like to do. So this is the reason why we continue with Flutter.
Excellent. Yes, that's been my experience as well. And just out of curiosity, do you publish either of those, or are they like quite specific and you've kept them internal to your app?
No, actually it is published in the App Store, but it is a little bit older version. The new version will be come up soon. It is the app is Inspector 360, which is in Google Store and App Store. But also, if you remember, we had a discussion to have another meeting to talk in more detail about that specific app and our Flutter journey. Maybe we'll have another meeting for that later on.
Yeah, that would be great. Sorry, I didn't make it clear enough. Sorry, I was talking about like your actual plugins, like when you did the plugin with the, say, the text SDK, text to voice SDK.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Are those public, or are those like a specific to your app and private inside to the app?
No, those ones are still private for the internal use of the app, unfortunately. But maybe in the future we make that public. It depends on the strategy of the company.
For sure. Yeah, like often, yeah, it's a very specific purposes for the app, so it doesn't always make sense to publish them.
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, if I could like throw in another one of my questions, and it's like about making a contribution. Like, what do you think, in your thoughts, would be on what would be a good contribution? Like, where people would make a good start when they want to make a contribution to a project? Like, is there particular things that they should look at, like, say, existing issues? Or, like, I know personally on my projects, I ask people to create an issue before they make any contribution, before they even start contributing, because opening an issue kind of like gives the scope or explanation of what they're going to contribute. I was just wondering your thoughts. Who would ever like to start? Like Suesi, Brett, Nima, either anyone can jump in.
I'm happy to go. Nima, Suesi.
Yeah, sure.
Go, Brett.
My suggestion for how to interact with an open source crew is to be honest with yourself about what you want to learn, what you want to contribute, and then start a relationship. It's not transactional, it's relationship based. So if you want to be involved in a project and you only want to do a small amount of work occasionally, be honest about that and take small things on and do them. Like the problem I see quite often is you'll have someone come in and go, I want to like repaint the entire Harbour Bridge in one go. It's like, no, just pick a small patch and paint a little bit at a time. That way, the advantage for us is that, one, we can help you, we can guide you. Whereas if you try and do everything at once, it becomes really hard to land because you have to get a lot of buy-in from a lot of different people. Whereas if you're making small changes and you're learning the culture and learning who the key stakeholders are, then you'll have a lot more traction to get things landed, because people will go, I know that person, they write good code, I'll just go and review it, as opposed to, here's a massive PR that's going to take days to review and I'll let someone else deal with it. So that's my hacks for getting things published.
I think that's very sage advice. Very much agree with that. And Nima, or did you have any thoughts?
I think Brett says very good things here.
Yeah.
So,
And how about Suesi? Did you want to say anything on that? Like, any thoughts on what's a good starting point for people to contribute?
Actually, the starting point, I think, is the need of the features. Anything that's missing or any bug or any defect that you will need to fix. So instead of starting with the features, which may be quite large, I think first step is to find a small defect and start with that first. If you are going to start with features, make sure that you put your features small enough so that the PR is not too large and it will cause like someone will say that you are a crazy coder that wants thousands of likes and nobody want to review your PR, no matter how good the idea is. So start small and make sure you put a little bit small chunk in one shot.
Yes, I completely agree. I think that's excellent advice. Like, I find it interesting that you both highlighted that, because I think that's one of the key things, is that especially people who are very eager to contribute, or even like who start working on something and like the idea grows and grows, as it were, it's often very easy to end up with a huge PR. And like really like, or I would definitely suggest everyone, if they can, to keep things like small and contained, because you make life easier both for yourself in terms of getting it reviewed, but also it makes it life much easier for the maintainers to look at it and to give you like quicker feedback and quicker responses on it.
Yeah.
Just a quick rule of thumb: the amount of time required to review a PR is exponential in the number of lines of code changed. So if it's a 1-line PR, it's really quick. If it's a 1,000-line PR, it's weeks. So if you want to get PRs landed, submitting 1,000 1-line PRs is the way to do it. Kind of.
Yeah. Definitely. Like, I couldn't agree more. And especially also, I guess people perhaps sometimes need to manage expectations as well. Like that even when you do keep things reasonably small, if it's going to be a significant change, it might take quite a while to happen. And I guess the more kind of like widely used packages or plugins, the more likely it is that perhaps it can take quite a while. Like I know I got kind of into this game in terms of Flutter contributions by trying to get a couple of existing PRs kind of like prepped and over the line, because I needed them for a project I was working on. And that's like, on one of them was with Markdown, where I interacted with you, Brett, but another one was on the Sentry plugin, for those who might use Sentry for their crash reporting. And like, while that was like, I think I found it like after maybe it had already been around for almost 6 months. Like I did happen to spot another PR that was on that repo that I think took over a year and a half before it landed, or close to a year and a half before it landed. I hope I remember the numbers correctly, but a very long time. And that was in part because there was a big change when the package started did web support, and I was very impressed with how like diligent and persistent the person who'd contributed the PR was. And I think the package maintainer also thanked him for his like very long running patience to get that landed. But it was a really, really significant and useful part of the package. So I'm very glad that there's people out there who really stick with it and keep going to make sure that they get their code in. But yes, sometimes you do need to like kind of play the slow, patient game to get things in, especially into repos where perhaps the maintainers like don't have as much time, but also because they might be a bit conservative, because it's a very kind of key package that's used in a very sort of important role within people's apps. I'm just having a check. I didn't see any other questions come in. Like if anyone in the audience has any more questions, I'll quickly do a last call. And
hey, Max, I'd like to add something to your last point.
Oh, sure, please do.
While you're checking for open questions, something that's worth remembering if you are hoping to land a big change is going back to my point about creating relationships. One of the things we do a lot internally at Google is that if you want to land a big change to someone, there's nothing better than actually going and spending time with them. Admittedly, at this point, that's virtual, but things like documents that spell out, okay, here's the need for the change, here's the alternatives investigated, and enabling that conversation, because frequently GitHub pull requests is not the most conducive to gaining sort of a coherent overview, because all you've got is the code plus comments on the code, whereas having sort of like diagrams and justification and an environment to have a conversation is quite useful. So what I would do in those cases is start small, gain sort of notoriety, if you were, about proving that you actually can be a good coder and work with a team. And when you do that, start going, okay, I've got this big idea. Can we catch up for a chat? Here's a doc, here's the reasons, here's the requirements, and sort of build up the relationship that way.
I think that's excellent advice. And yeah, like that, I think that's something that's a bit overlooked sometimes, is that the need to have a relationship, like, because definitely that's the kind of thing that we often do, like in our day jobs, for those of us who are like working programmers, and we sometimes forget that that's also needed in open source projects as much, if not more so, because you're not sitting next to someone. Well, none of us are sitting next to someone at the moment, but like in other times, like you'd be sitting next to like the other people you're working with in the office, and it makes it much easier to communicate. I just wonder, Brett, like actually, if I could ask you one other thing in terms of the Flutter repo, because I have seen you do things on the SDK and also in some of the other package repos. It's interesting that, like, unlike some even other Google projects, like Android, for instance, Flutter seems to be completely developed in the open, like even things like milestone planning and releases and things are very much in the open. So in terms of contributing, like when people on the Flutter team contribute into the repo, are they like basically not using any internal repos where they're staging changes? They're like directly working into the public repos that we see? Because I know, for instance, Android works like, because I used to work a little bit on Android system development, that was very different. People would basically, vendors, Google, everyone has their own kind of like private trees, and then sort of people just publish things once they're fully formed versus kind of working out in the open. But that doesn't seem to be the case in Flutter, like from what I could see anyway.
There's a little bit of chicanery going on. We have a bunch of robots that basically pull source changes from GitHub and slide them into our internal Google 3 source repository. So changes to head actually must pass a bunch of internal tests before they actually get committed to GitHub. So it's not totally everything is in the open, because there's a bunch of Google 3 internal projects that gate every pull request. And there's also even more chicanery with regards to the Dart, that is the Dart toolchain that's vended into Flutter. So changes to that, I think, follow something that's a little more like Android, in that when I do changes to Dart, they turn around and go, I picked this up and submitted it internally and yada, yada, yada. But for the vast majority, Flutter was always envisioned as an open source project, even to the point now where we had a bunch of internal conversations that happened on Google Chat, and Ian Hixie was sort of like, there's a bunch of decisions being made here that shouldn't be made without the community being involved. So we moved it all across to Discord so that you all can get involved and basically be able to ping our head engineers and go, what the hell's going on here? It's broken, it's burning on this platform, and we can be more proactive and interactive. So there is a little bit of internal only juice, but we try to do as much as we can in the open, because honestly, the problem we're trying to take on is much bigger than the team we have. So we need to work with all of you to make it possible.
Yeah, and I have to say that like I haven't contributed anything yet to like the SDK except for like commenting on some issues. But I have found like everyone on the team very approachable, and it's quite different to, for instance, the experience or the way the Android project is structured and the way Android developers interact with the Android team and their bug tracker versus the interactions I've had with the Flutter team and going via GitHub, or even like just like seeing other people's contributions come in via GitHub, which is quite a bit more approachable than, for instance, Gerrit, which is a great system, but perhaps not the easiest thing for people who aren't doing it as their day job to deal with when they're trying to contribute. Yeah. It's not the easiest tool in the world. Like GitHub is much more kind of like something that people are familiar with. So for those who haven't heard Gerrit of it, Gerrit is a little bit like a enterprisey version of GitHub, as it were, for code reviews. So it's very powerful, but also not the easiest to deal with.
I feel like telling some people that summary because I will die inside.
I don't like. I got nothing but good things to say about the people who work on Gerrit, because they were also the ones who are responsible for a library called JGit, which is a Java Git client, which I've worked on for my open source project and which I really actually enjoy working on. So it's just that, like, it's, I guess, horses for courses. I don't think it was ever meant as a tool to be used by the kind of general public in the way that GitHub is. So probably, yeah, just different tools for different jobs kind of thing. So please don't get me into trouble.
I wouldn't dream of it, man. Wouldn't dream of it.
But anyway,
this is live on YouTube, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like no one's listening at all. I think that's about, I guess, close to the end of it. Like I did promise that we'd pick someone for a prize for the best question. And I realize there's probably not an easy way for us to quickly select it. So I wonder, perhaps, like we might get together. Like I might ask. This could be an encouragement, perhaps, for the people who have asked questions. Please join us if you haven't already on the GDG ANZ Slack. I'll post a joining link to that in a second, and and specifically there's a Flutter channel there. So if you could join there, we will confer amongst ourselves afterwards on the list of questions that we've been presented, and I'll post the winner as well as the winners of the prize draw for feedback. So please, if I could ask everyone who's participated, please fill in the feedback form so we get feedback on how it went today and also what you'd like to see in future events. That would be really greatly appreciated. And yes, we'll do a prize draw for 2 responses. We'll win a voucher each. So please pop in, like the URL for that feedback form is in the YouTube chat, and in a sec I'll also post a link for our a link to join our GDG Slack. So I'm not very good at multitasking, so bear with me for a second as I quickly post that in. But with that, I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who came along, and an extremely big, huge thank you to my fellow panelists who've come along and done a fantastic job at discussing all things Flutter and open source. I am indebted to you guys. There wouldn't have been an event without you. So thank you very much. And thank you very much to Nima for your fantastic presentation.
No worries. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks very much. I realize I don't have to do this so you can actually hear me. So thank you all. And with that, I might sign off and hopefully see you all soon at a future Flutter Melbourne event. Thank you very much.
See you later.
See you. Bye.
Bye.